What's your favorite Thanksgiving movie? Or at least Thanksgiving-related movie? I'll tell you mine in a second, but it's a good movie for anybody with a heart and a dysfunctional family. And it's actually the perfect film to study from an independent filmmaking perspective. Filmmaking with brass knuckles on a little field trip here for Thanksgiving weekend. And in my video, the A to B concept, I talked about how Aaron Sorkin and David Mamet both have this whole A to B concept thing in place. They both talk about, the illustration they give is going from New York to Los Angeles. You're kind of plotting a story. That's what you're doing. Your goal and your intention is to go from point A to point B. And if your favorite Thanksgiving movie is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, then John Hughes definitely tapped into this A to B concept. He puts Steve Martin in, I believe it's Kansas. He's stuck in Kansas, and he wants to get back to Chicago to spend Thanksgiving with his family. That's the A to B concept in a nutshell. That A to B concept is embedded in my favorite Thanksgiving movie, Pieces of April, a little underrated movie, and came out in 2003, I believe. Great ensemble cast starring Katie Holmes and Patricia Clarkson. Katie plays April, a young girl, kind of edgy in New York City, estranged from her family, and she kind of wants to make amends for her family. Her mother has breast cancer. We don't know how serious it is, but she's going through chemotherapy now. And so April decides that she's going to cook Thanksgiving dinner for her family, kind of make amends to some of the screw-ups she's had in her life. And it's around the 15-minute mark. I think maybe page 19 of the screenplay, but 15 in the movie. April goes to put the turkey in the oven and discovers that the oven is broken. And so then that's the inciting incident. That's the thing that sets the story in motion. So the whole point A is needs to cook a turkey, and point B is she needs to have the turkey cooked and make amends with her family. That's the A to B. It's all embedded right there in Pieces of April. And where it goes, we'll talk about from a filmmaking perspective of how Peter Hedges made the movie. When Aaron Sorkin talks about the A to B concept, he talks about it like a clothesline. Here's point A, here's point B. And what you're doing is you're putting individual scenes on that clothesline. And each scene is embedded much conflict. I think it was Aristotle who said, all a story is that progression of scenes that is moving to an ending that is surprising and inevitable. So basically what Peter Hedges does is he puts the character that needs to cook a turkey and puts obstacles, little individual scenes on that clothesline all the way till we get to point B, which is the ending that is surprising and inevitable. So on that clothesline, the beginning point for Katie Holmes, April, is to call the supervisor of the building, and obviously that doesn't work. She gets the answering machine. So she comes up with a plan that she's going to go knock on doors and see if she can let one of her neighbors in her New York City walk-up let her cook her turkey. And she gets somebody that says, hey, I'll give you an hour. You can cook my turkey for an hour. And then she's got to go knock on other doors and various successes and failures and trying to schedule where she can do this. And the family from the suburbs is coming in. They have their own conflicts as a part of that. And they're going to culminate at the end. Over here on, there's point A, point B. The family has their own point A to point B. They're all coming in from the suburbs. I think maybe it was Pennsylvania. Could be Long Island, I don't know. But they're coming in from point A to point B. Everything's gonna conclude here at point B. As April goes around the building trying to find someone that'll allow her to cook her turkey in their oven for a little bit, she's a little bit like the Frogger, going here, going there, trying to make this all work. And one of my favorite sequences in the film is with a couple that basically at first doesn't seem like they're going to be sympathetic towards helping April, but when they hear her story, they decide that they can give her a couple of hours. And the exchange between that couple and April, I just love it. It just seems so real. I won't spoil this movie for those of you who haven't seen it. It's not like Jaws or Star Wars where everybody's seen it and you're not going to ruin the ending. It's a jewel of a film. It's one that I return to often. It's kind of my It's a Wonderful Life for Thanksgiving, but you can watch this any time of the year. But I do want to talk about 10 ways that this movie is perfect, not only from a Thanksgiving perspective, but from a low-budget filmmaking perspective. Number 1, limited time frame. You know, the low-budget mantra should be embrace your limitations. This movie takes place in one day. Not even a day, maybe 8 or 9 in the morning till 4 or 5 in the afternoon. So it's a 8 or 9 hour period. And what that does from a limited budget standpoint is hair, makeup, wardrobes, continuity. Those are all reduced because everybody's wearing the same thing throughout the day. Number 2, limited locations. 90% of this movie takes place inside a car and inside an apartment building. Number 3, limited time run. Because the screenplay for Pieces of April comes in at just 92 pages and is dialogue heavy, the entire movie only runs about 82 minutes. 82 minutes means less scenes shot, less time editing. Less shooting, less time, saves money. Number 4, success born out of failure. Peter Hedges says that, you know how you are not supposed to put all your eggs in one basket? Well, he went to college wanting to be an actor more than anything. He put all his eggs in that basket, and he failed. He called his father discouraged, and his father told him to do something positive. And what he did was started writing scenes and plays. And his actor friends, because he had plenty of those, his actor friends would act in them and direct them. And then he would later go on to write a novel. It's something that his father later told him he thought was the stupidest thing that he ever said he was going to do. His dad told him that when he was on the set of that novel that became the movie, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, starring some young up-and-coming actors named Leonardo DiCaprio and Johnny Depp. And that was where he found his success, in his novels and in his screenplays and his films. His success didn't come easy either. He said he moved 20 times, worked various temp jobs, other jobs, just trying to cobble together a living while he was writing, trying to find his way in the world. Number 5, I heard a talk that Peter Hedges gave at Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa, and a young filmmaker was a little apprehensive about making a film because it was going to be imperfect, kind of like what I just did there. And Peter said, everything humans do is imperfect. That kind of takes the pressure off, right? There's a great moment in the documentary about the Eagles where Glenn Frey, the lead singer and lyricist of many Eagles' great hits, talks about being in Michigan, and Bob Seger, a little bit older than Glenn, told him that he wasn't going to really break out unless he wrote his own songs. And Glenn Frey said, well, what if they're bad? And Bob Seger said, well, they're going to be bad. You just keep writing them until they're not bad. And eventually you'll write some hit songs, which is exactly what Glenn Frey did. Number 6. Another thing I love about Pieces of April is it's a melting pot, just like America. You have this original Thanksgiving tradition that's, it's a mixture of good and bad. But look at this country that came out of it. Not perfect, but it is a melting pot. And Pieces of April shows that melting pot. There's black, there's white, there's Hispanic, there's Asian. It is a mix of people coming together in a film that's not forced in any way. I love that about Pieces of April. Number 7 on embracing your limitations. Pieces of April was shot with a Sony PD-150. Now remember, the film was released in 2003, probably shot in 2002. Just a few years before that is when the Blair Witch Project kind of exploded, showing that you could shoot something with a digital video camera that not only got a theatrical release, but found a large audience. For a long time, it was the biggest moneymaker from what it cost to make to what it made at the box office for a long time. I think until Paranormal Activity came out, it was the box office winner in that range. But the Sony PD-150 was actually a standard definition camera, and another camera at that time that I used was a Panasonic DVX100. These are cameras that were in the, I want to say, $3,000 to $5,000 range. But if you have a iPhone today, you have a high definition camera that could outshoot quality-wise what Tammy Riker was doing in Pieces of April as the DP. And she did a great job. I love the whole look and feel of Pieces of April. It's what they had at the time, and I think it holds up today. I think it has its own little aesthetic, and I love in the DVD commentary, Peter Hedges talks about one of the benefits of shooting with one of these smaller cameras, which is very common today, but 20-some years ago wasn't, is that he was allowed, because he wasn't shooting film, didn't have the film expense, the film processing expense, they were allowed to just shoot continually, even the rehearsals, and some of those made it into the final edit. So I love that about Pieces of April, that they're able to shoot in a very confined space. I think there was one scene where they only had 4 hours to shoot in this apartment, and so 2 to 3 actors at a time, very tight spaces. The camera worked out great. They were able to shoot those rehearsals and sprinkle those into the edited film. And so they embraced their limitations just like you can do today with your iPhone or whatever else is new out there. So a shout out to Tammy Riker for embracing her limitations and shooting this with a standard definition digital camera back in the day. Number 8. This is another thing about the movie being made in 2003. Peter Hedges is just trying to make a mark as an independent filmmaker. YouTube doesn't even come out for another year in 2004. Doesn't even really get traction till later in that decade, and then maybe 2014, 15, people start finding ways to make money. But from an exposure standpoint, it's tremendous. You can, just on your Thanksgiving break, make a little video like I'm doing here with your iPhone, put it on the internet, send it out in the world, see what happens. I'm not saying I'm going to change the world. Hopefully it's going to add a little value. Hope it's going to help you, encourage you to make your own films, embrace your limitations as well. If nothing else, it puts Pieces of April on your radar, so that'll improve your life by watching that movie. A little more kudos to Peter Hedges for making a wonderful film. Number 9, in embracing your limitations. Peter Hedges actually had financing fall through twice before he got to make it the third time. He was able to keep the cast together and make that film in 16 days. Number 10 on embracing your limitations. What if you're not from New York or LA? Can you still make films? Well, Peter Hedges was born and raised in Iowa, hence the Iowa hat. I believe he went to college in North Carolina, but he did end up in New York. So yes, you can come from Iowa. And if Peter Hedges doesn't prove that, then go back and look at my blog that I started in 2008. It's called Screenwriting from Iowa and Other Unlikely Places. I've written over 3,000 blog posts there. I turned it into the book Screenwriting with Brass Knuckles. It's all of the foundations to this blog, Filmmaking with Brass Knuckles. I wrote my blog Screenwriting from Iowa and Other Unlikely Places after Juno was a hit, and I learned that Diablo Cody went to school at the University of Iowa. She later moved to Minneapolis and started a blog, was encouraged to write a screenplay, and Juno flowed out of that. And if Peter Hedges and Diablo Cody don't prove that you can come from Iowa, then let me throw out a couple more names. Scott Beck and Brian Woods met as 6th graders in Iowa, made little short films together, made longer films together through high school, went to the University of Iowa, and later found success from their screenplay, A Quiet Place, and their career was off and running. So embrace your limitations, happy Thanksgiving, and happy filmmaking.